Hello, everyone. Welcome to ELI, the only podcast in India where we bring a new founder on every episode to talk about their journey and their story of building a startup. And today we have with us Manish Godha, who is the co-founder and CEO of Advaiya, which is a technology consulting and implementation services company. Hello, Manish. Welcome to ELI.
Hey Priya, great to be here.
To start with, Manish, can you brief us a bit about your journey, your background, your past life, anything before entrepreneurship that we must, understand to set the context.
Uh, sure. So I hail from Udaipur. Much of my childhood was in Udaipur. And I did my chartered accountancy here.
Mm-hmm.
Along with chartered accountancy, I also studied computer science and so on. So been kind of on the technology track as well. And I After my chartered accountancy, I moved to Bangalore, where I spent a couple of years working with engineering consulting companies, startups, and so on. Uh, then I moved to Bombay. I worked with the ICICI Bank when they were starting their information security division, essentially information security
Okay.
as a separate department. And that was kind of my first uh, real enterprise IT exposure that I had, where I got to really see how large enterprises view technology, how they benefit from technology. And there
Mm-hmm.
is a perspective shift. You work in a finance department, you look at things in a very different way. You look at things purely from an application perspective or from a view of what are the costs and so on.
Right.
As you move into IT, you look at enterprise IT, you see its complexity, you see the way people within IT look at it. So that was essentially the exposure that I got. And during those years, somewhere around 2000, 2001, or 2002, I kind of started to get a little uneasy working within a large organization, ICICI Bank, as you could imagine. I mean, I was in their HQ, and it is a large organization. There is a limited sphere of influence that you have, and that led me to really explore entrepreneurship as an option. And fortunately for me,
Mm-hmm.
uh, as a family, my father has been an entrepreneur, so there is
Oh.
some kind of you know understanding of how that word looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
I returned to Udaipur, tried a few things. I started my own chartered accountancy firm, started to do something there, looked at taking in some consulting assignments and so on. But then the big break that I got was my brother, meanwhile, was in US. He was working with companies like Microsoft and so on. And as he was there, he introduced me to a couple of his friends there
Okay.
who introduced me again into the world of Microsoft,
Okay.
how Microsoft works. I got connected into Microsoft, and therein we saw some opportunities in terms of helping companies who are working with Microsoft, working for Microsoft, or working through Microsoft, and then so on. So purely from that sense, we started to work on that, got a few projects. I spent some time in US, a few months here and there, and then that's how Advaya was born. We primarily started with working with Microsoft technologies with Microsoft. Essentially, when if
Okay.
Microsoft has a larger project or larger deployment, they would use a few companies
Mm-hmm.
as subcontractors to deploy this thing, and we got some opportunities there. Then we started to help with their product sales and marketing, primarily from a technology side. Things like building technology marketing material content,
Mm-hmm.
or technology accelerators, or blueprints, or competitive analysis, or demos, and then so on.
Okay.
And that was where Microsoft was actually trying to spend quite a bit into enterprise technology. They
Mhm.
were trying to move from being a back-end company to a solutions company, so as to in their positioning itself. And that was a good opportunity for us.
Mm.
As they were spending quite a bit in there, we could bring in some understanding of enterprise IT as well as how solutions work and help them there. And that was the initial part of this. Slowly, as Microsoft also changed, they started to use other kind of agencies and so on. And we also for diversification, we started to actually implement the solutions as well, and that's how our solutions business came in.
Got it.
And that has been and over the years, our overall what we call as technology marketing business has kind of become a very small part of the business. We are more focused on the solutions, helping organizations, large organizations primarily,
Hmm.
with their IT initiatives, digital initiatives in various directions, whether it is on the data or AI, cloud migration, business applications, and so on.
Got it. Uh, Give us a brief on what are the things that you are working on right now. Like one big thing that you are doing, probably it's a terminology coined by you, the peripheral automation. What is it? Can you help our audience to understand and set a context for them?
Sure. Think of any enterprise, and especially as cloud happened and as consumerization of technology started to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Any enterprise for its various use cases ends up using certain applications, builds certain databases, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a large enterprise does invest in certain what we call it as core applications, whether it is SAP or certain, bank would have core banking systems and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But then those they do not cover the entire gamut of enterprise operations. And
Right.
what really ends up happening is enterprise not just end up with a core. In fact, they sometimes companies actually end up with, some of our clients, they have multiple ERP systems working within the same organization. So there could be multiple applications there, then there could be whole lot of individual cloud applications or individual applications that either get built or get bought in some way or another, especially as some departments, some business units find a certain application helpful and so on. And that's something that has led to a jungle of applications in any organization.
Okay.
Now, when you really investigate that, you realize that having this kind of multiplicity of applications is good for organization because that has allowed them to respond to market very quickly. But at the same time, that has ended up creating certain inflexibility because those applications might not talk to each other and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, so it's a kind of the two-edged sword, so as to say.
Okay.
Our thinking was that the traditional view of enterprise architecture, which was based on enterprise standards, is no longer adequate.
Okay.
Technology is changing so quickly that an enterprise cannot really create and enforce stable standards,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is front end technologies, databases, your servers, or anything. Enforcing stable standards is no longer possible. In
Mm-hmm.
that case, what is the approach that an enterprise can take which can allow them to use their technology investments in a much more productive way, while the flexibility of having anything remains, they still have the robustness of well-managed core applications that used to be there. And that's where the notion of peripheral automation really started to happen. We started to think of various our engagements with organizations, and we realized that some of the successes and some of the failures they pointed to a certain way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
One was, if we really look at a particular enterprise use case, let's say accounting,
Okay.
and if we look at it as a top to bottom, one monolith, one application to handle it all, we we get into endless cycles of changes and revisions, and it never really gets stabilized, because what really happens is you start to build the databases, the core entities, business processes, and the interfaces. And as by the time you build that, the business has changed, the requirements has changed, the interfaces need to change, or processes need to be tweaked, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So what we realized is that the best way to do it is to build it layer by layer,
Mm-hmm.
create core entities, which is all your core databases, core business, core application logic,
Right.
data integrity stuff, and essential core
Mm-hmm.
data integrity, and application logic. You build that. So maybe SAP helps you there, or Salesforce helps you there, or Dynamics help you there, or certain databases, data warehouses, and anything there.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, create a slightly more flexible business automation layer, which is consisting of business processes.
Okay.
So that's where there's certain workflows or certain information flows that can be put in, which can be reused. I mean, there are many times similar workflows are used across the businesses at different places with slight differences, and then put in business interfaces, or whether it is API or user interfaces or web interface, mobile interface, nowadays chat interface, whatever, which are completely flexible. You
Mm-hmm.
can change it at any point of time. So there were a few interesting learnings there. We realized that the much of the changes that are required, that need to happen, they're at those top layers.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really require to change the core entities. I do not really need to change my GLs or vendor records or anything like that to make a change in, let's say, uh, purchase process, or the way maybe business users want to look at a particular purchase piece. That can be done very quickly if I have connectable, open way of looking at my automations and etc. The good news is technology today makes it much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Gone are the days where if you had a big system, connecting it into its core entities was very difficult, very costly, cumbersome, and also riddled with security holes.
Mm-hmm.
That's no longer the case. Almost everything has some ways of connecting to their entities, some way of connecting to their processes. And another thing is, you have so many ways in which people want to connect. It's not just mobile applications or web interfaces, or people would want to connect it via some kind of a third party applications. You would want to use your Microsoft Teams or Slack to connect to that. So all of that flexibility becomes possible with this layered way of thinking. It
Mm-hmm.
also allows you to do what can be thought of as differential innovation. So you
Right.
do not really need to change everything to be innovative, or to really get to the new paradigm of enterprise technology and everything. And what it also leads to the thing there is, if you have already invested something, you can squeeze way more juice out of your existing investments
Mm-hmm.
while remaining modern, while remaining responsive.
Got it.
And those are the kind of key concepts around that. We started to build this overall peripheral automation as a framework. We started to think of what would really enable peripheral automation when you're doing an enterprise deployment. What would be the things that would allow it? What would be the things that would deter it? And if we are able to make sure that when we are designing a system, those principles are followed, the overall system would become way more. So it's two ways of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
One is, when you're building the system, how do you do it so that peripheral automation principles are followed? That is one. Two, when you're building an extension, when you're implementing a change, how do you do that so that it causes minimal disruption?
Got it.
Disruption is a great concept if it happens to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
You do not want your IT to be disrupted every now and then when you're launching a new product or you're getting into a new market. You don't want your IT to be disrupted. You want your IT to be running robustly as much as possible. But at the same time, you want to embrace the disruption that is happening in the market. How do you balance that scale? Is via this approach of peripheral automation. For us, you know, admittedly, we got into this concept as a result of many errors that we did. We
Mm-hmm.
also got into large projects where we would, dismantle everything and start building it because of things. There were delays, there were missed, I would say, missed use cases. The level of the dissatisfaction was high, and long cycles. We also realized that there were places where we were successful, where we actually accomplished the same thing with much lesser cost, much faster when
Mm-hmm.
we did it in it. So as we accumulated our own successes and failures, and we also had the benefit of learning from others' insights. There were quite a few companies in the community, they were facing the same thing. And so we collected all of those insights. We kind of created a peripheral automation consortium where multiple companies, we would come together, share our stories, and that way these principles. So that's what peripheral automation is, and that has now become Advaiya's mainstay in terms of how we approach any technology initiative, whether it's on the data side, whether it is on the automation side, whether it is artificial intelligence, whether it is creating newer customer interfaces, or so and so forth. Anything can be now, with newer technologies, can be taught in the peripheral automation terms, can be deployed in this particular way, and that has been, I believe, has been very successful in our experience, not just for us, of course, but then also something wherein same use cases can be delivered much faster and much cheaper to our clients.
Got it. Can you take some examples, some real life examples of your implementation where you saw a lot of success, uh, in terms of which all industries are finding good success? Is it a banking where you see a lot of success, or is it a retail? Which all use cases, like you gave example of the purchase managers use case, uh, which all use cases that you have seen great success in which all markets, like is it India where it is working well, or is it in US or Europe?
It has been more or less everywhere in terms of regional thing. And what I am finding is people are really very open to this as a concept, and
Mm-hmm.
many organizations have kind of adopted it in one way or another, maybe not in as formal way as we have started to define it, but then in concept, many organizations have adopted it in multiple ways. And across the world, across industry verticals, and so on. At Advaya, our focus has really been in some few industries. We have been great at what we call it as AEC related, which is architecture, engineering, construction companies. In India, we call them EPC companies as well. So AEC, infrastructure, reality, somewhat related sectors. They have been where it has been pretty successful. Think of use cases like, how do I look at costing for my bid, or how do I do my bid management? Uh, for a construction company or for a large EPC company, that is a big use case. Now, one way to look at it is, you have a very integrated project management and construction management system, which records everything, it tracks the projects, it has a way of creating BOMs, and so on and so forth. In
Mm-hmm.
reality, what happens is, every project is different. You may or may not have that kind of an information, that kind of an automation already in your system.
Okay.
People would end up using multiple ways of doing it. And in our experience, we actually did a very large project with one of the prominent EPC company in the power sector, to do this entire process, where they had very industry focused consultants who created a whole way of doing cost analysis, bid management, and so on. And
Mm-hmm.
we tried to take that, create the data entities, and create the entire system. And essentially, we only ended up creating a very small part of it which worked. There was a whole lot of things that we did which really never got used.
Got it.
But then the insight there, what we ended up doing, which really became successful, was we took pieces of it, created all of them as separate apps.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a piece about project risk management, identifying risks, particular, we took it as a separate thing, which will connect to maybe external sources or the project types or historical data, really connect to that and just do that piece. We
Mm-hmm.
did costing and a BOM management the thing which was separate. So when we were building an entire one monolithic system, we weren't
Mm-hmm.
really going really much further. But when we started to pick out pieces within that,
Mm-hmm.
which then we decided that okay, let's not replicate or let's not recreate what already they have. They already have some way of managing their construction BOMs. uh, let's just use that, whatever the entities that are there, they already have some way of managing their project cost as they go on. Their ERP was already doing that. Let's use that. So we were using entities. So almost about 80-85% of data entities, we ended up using what already were there.
Okay.
And we created only a few things. We of course have to have a staging database and some kind of a replication, but conceptually, the new entities were very, very, very few. And that uh, made the system, as we realized that we can actually create those as multiple peripheral automation pieces, the adoption essentially became much easier. We would only look at one piece, that would be done. Even if for in a particular instance, not all of those pieces are used, people could choose, hey, this is the particular area that, okay, risk management module is something that is very relevant when I'm doing it. Oh, I'm doing it this is an entirely new kind of a project. It's a new terrain. Perhaps I do not have the data available on that. I would not be using this. I would only be using that, and which led to a much more robust and a much more usable way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And and really, if I look at it, the benefits that are getting accrued are way more than the costs. Okay, time to market was faster. Small pieces meant that individual domain owners could really manage it. If the business logic changed or anything that could happen, it did not really require an entire release cycle where everything else would also be need to be looked at and so on. So it made things much simpler.
Got it.
So
Uh,
that's one example of a construction company. There are multiple other examples. We implemented ERP systems for a real estate company wherein the computation of commissions,
mm-hmm.
for example, was a highly complicated thing. We started to build it within the ERP system itself. Uh, I mean, that was the mandate. That then, but we were able to convince the client that hey, let's do it separately. Let's take the peripheral automation approach where ERP only maintains the core entities, and we would get these different business processes separately. Let's implement the ERP. Let's get that going first,
Mm-hmm.
and that led to a much quicker compliance for them. They were able to raise funds because they had a much more robust financial system. Earlier they were working on simple accounting software like Tally, so they could do that. And at the later stage, we were able to bring in a different application, which was their commission calculator, which would just plug in there, use the same data, but then do that. So those are the kind of ways. There are 100 other things I can list. Purchase automation, PR processes, inspection processes, quality management, production planning, all of those things. If you try to build it into the same system at the first go, would be very costly. If you
Okay.
separate them out, build the entities, create business processes and interfaces in a phased manner,
Mm-hmm.
becomes much easier.
Got it. Uh, can you tell us a bit about your experience with AI? Because AI has been a big buzzword recently. Not just a buzzword; it's actually changing things. But It's a debatable topic. Some companies are finding a lot of value from AI, uh, and a lot of companies are saying that they're not finding any value. Recently, a survey happened where almost 95% of companies are saying, 95% of Fortune 500 companies are saying they're not finding any value out of AI. Having said that, and a lot of the AI automations are happening at the periphery. It's not happening at the core logic. It's happening at the outer side. Uh, can you tell us about what has been your experience about these AI implementations? Um, how successful have they been? In which all industries you have seen good success and all?
So, I would have also say that our experience has also been mixed.
Mm,
We have been working on various AI projects for many years now. I
mhm,
mean, even generative AI has become the main technology fulcrum as of now. But then before that, machine learning use cases were something that we were implementing in our projects, uh, pretty much. And uh, things like, for example, customer categorization,
mm,
or aspects of OCR, or
right.
certain aspects of quality control, or certain aspects of anomaly detection.
Mhm,
Those aspects we were building into the core systems, and those were things, these kind of ML use cases could be implemented in a very peripheral automation way. You already have the databases,
right.
you train a model, and you put in that loop back into the
Mm,
system, and so we did, and they are specialized AI use cases, which
mm,
wherein the cost and the return were very obvious. And those were as generative AI came in and the hype really built on. What has started to happen is that many businesses, for various reasons, we stopped to really look at costs and benefits in
mm,
that clear a way as we used to.
right.
In okay. And the hype across that meant that it almost became uh, imperative for any organization to implement some sort of AI
Yeah.
within an organization. That kind of became CIO's KRA,
Mm,
that some AI has to come in, and which also meant that companies bought into the overhyped promises
mm,
very quickly. And another thing that really happened, when you really look at, mm, uh, I say AI evangelists.
mhm,
Let me use that term. People who have been very gung ho about AI. If you look at that, there were. I mean, one is the AI industry itself, who has been kind of being very vocal about what can be done by AI. Now, AI industry is not your industry. It's somebody else somewhere else. It's not your company. It's not your business, and so on.
right.
The other class of people who were very excited about AI was, I would say, the uh, the surrounding influencer ecosystem.
Mhm,
You had a lot of people in the business press, in the technology press, in the leadership environment, talking about it, who really themselves had no actual technical or implementation experience or understanding. I mean, some of those people would have probably just used chat gpt in a few situations, and then they kind of extrapolated from it. Hey, if chat gpt can talk to me about my essay pretty well, it
mhm,
can also do your proposal pretty well. I mean,
right.
those were the kind of leaps of inference kind of that were made by the people who were themselves not very uh, innovative. And if you really look at it, and if you really dive deeper on that, the
Mm,
actual technology community's enthusiasm about AI has been more about using it themselves. A
mm,
coder is very enthusiastic about using various AI tools for improving his or her code, or
right.
or, or doing it. but then really not very clear about how actually AI would end up getting used for a particular use case. So when you
Right.
look at who were the people who were driving this kind of hype and this kind of a thing, it is obvious to see where the disillusionment would start to happen,
Right.
and that has started to happen, and that is not to say that AI's promise is not it's really it's not going to do anything
Mm,
significant or anything like that.
mm,
There, what has really happened was we started to see the bigger, larger, and more verbal promises, more verbose promises as the benchmark. People started to think, hey, AI is only successful if I am able to reduce effort by 80%.
mm,
Whereas even 20% implemented well, right, 20% savings would have been, pretty dramatic and pretty useful. So
absolutely.
it's the difference between promise, or I would say apparent promise,
Hmm.
and the results. It's not the difference between actual potential and the results.
Got it.
I still think, and I am a big votary of using AI. And I can see lots of examples where AI would be very, very useful. But then the important thing to think about it is AI is just another technology, just as other technologies led to savings of or benefits in a particular range. AI would also have the savings. Look at the costs, look at the benefits, take the decision. It's gonna work. But
Absolutely.
then if you buy into promises by people who are really either not connected with technology or not connected with your business,
Hmm.
then it's expected what has happened.
Got it. Yeah. Just adding on to your point, I think another aspect which has been overlooked is the security. AI is exposing the enterprise systems because of, the data is passed on to servers outside the country for processing MCPs, which are, requiring it's a more exposed way to share your data and all. So that is causing a lot of security vulnerabilities, and a lot of data leaks are happening these days because of AI.
That's true. I mean, of course, there are ways to manage it. I mean, we are implementing for a client their own hosted model, wherein we are using their internal hosted model to do the first pass, which allows it the queries to be passed and scrubbed off private information and then sent to a larger, more capable model, and then it
Right.
comes back and so on. So there are ways and means to work around that.
Mhm.
But I think the big challenge, and which is also going to be very important, as you know, whole agentic AI and AI based automation is coming in, is what is called the prompt injection attacks.
Hmm.
If you really think about it, in traditional technologies, data and instructions stayed at in different zones. They were like clearly demarcated.
Right.
With generative AI, data and instructions, they are all mixed together. They are in one. There is no way of separating them.
Hmm.
What that really means is we really do not have a good way, even a good theoretical way of managing prompt injection attacks.
Hmm.
Now, if I have AI systems running as agents wherein my business processes depend on it and they are, kind of completely automated, or human oversight is not really possible because of volumes or complexity or whatever,
Hmm.
we are vulnerable to those kind of prompt injection attacks. And it's a wholly different class of security issues that would come in. And I suspect
Hmm.
as we learn more about it, as we get more aware about it, and as we see the implications of it, it will truly, really slow down the the agentic applications hype.
Hmm.
Because you, I mean, the one thing is that I only use it to generate something, get in, and then review it in a more traditional way. But then if I have AI creating instructions for other systems, which is what an AI thing is, and actually executing it,
Mm-hmm.
therein control on that execution cycle becomes very important from a security point of view. And I have just I was reading a couple of case studies wherein prompt injection has been used to expose internal documents even without access, or has been used to perform activities which were beyond the remit of the current of the system, and so on and so forth. And these are only going to multiply. So yes, security is going to be a major concern, and I would argue that businesses today are not really equipped to truly do the risk management, risk assessment associated with AI, and
Mm-hmm.
which does require that we are much more cautious
Mm-hmm.
than we are.
Got it. Here is my final question before we close. As an entrepreneur and as a technologist, you have seen through the waves of technology. Like there was the wave of cloud when the monolithic architecture was challenged. People started saying that you can build distributed systems, you can outsource the compute, and so on. Then came blockchain, which was again a big wave, and now a AI wave is riding the industry. How do you advise other people, founders, uh, aspiring founders, to go about technology uh, based on your 2 decades of understanding how technology moves?
I I would say, I really do not know. Let me be very fair. We have made multiple mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
We have bet on technologies which looked very promising, built our capabilities, built products around that, to find that really didn't take off. There were technologies that we deprioritized, and they kind of really took off. Uh, let's say, and I really, beyond the basic qualification that you have, is it really useful? Is it going to be cost effective? Are people really, would there be real business use case for them? Is there a benefit use case for them? Beyond those key, basic qualifications, I really do not know if we can really pick a winner in the realm as they come. And that's the nature of innovation.
Right.
How, what a technology gets built for certain use cases in mind, it turns out that it actually gets the biggest value from that comes from entirely something else.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. The steam engines were first used
Mm-hmm.
to really mechanize the horse-driven mills.
Right.
One engine would power the entire factory, and so on. But then
Mm-hmm.
the real value of mechanization came in with the distributed way in which and then that kind of a thing would happen with any technology. What
Mm-hmm.
is really useful to think about it is a particular technology, and especially in B2B case, can bring in a bottom line impact. And when
Okay.
I think of bottom line impact, I think of, okay, at the top line, can it bring in growth? Can it bring in efficiencies when it comes to operational aspects to it? And can it bring in more effectiveness for the organizational aspects of it? Would people work better? Would there be lesser errors, and so on? If a technology can really directly impact growth, efficiency, and effectiveness, then it can bring a positive bottom line impact, and it will take off.
Mm-hmm.
Technologies rarely survive purely on hype.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about blockchain. I mean, think
Mm-hmm.
about it. What is the enterprise adoption of blockchain?
Right. Nothing.
Nothing, because much more hype, very little bottom line impact.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the our ability to see and create bottom line impact would be the determinant of it. Otherwise, I do not really know if there is a way in which we can pick winners or losers in technology world that easily.
Got it. And uh, will there be a change in how entrepreneurship is done, the process of entrepreneurship? Is it going to change because of, maybe humans can be replaced by AI agents? So instead of, building a team of humans to run a company, can you build a team of AI agents to, run a process or something like that?
It would change the way entrepreneurship happens, undoubtedly, and it is already changing. I can see that. But then it is not about replacing human beings by AI agents. I mean, that's a very simplistic way of putting it. My or any entrepreneur's ability to use multiple resources which are around
Hmm.
would increase significantly by use of AI. Think of it in this way: an entrepreneur is limited by his or her own understanding of certain aspects. One
Right.
cannot be great at finance and legal and as well as technology and marketing and sales. Now those are the domains wherein classically an entrepreneur would look in for more people to come in within the organization. May
Hmm.
or may not need it at that time at the fullest of scale, but then they still would need those capabilities. Now my ability to engage an outsider for that small help in the best possible way is
Hmm.
enhanced significantly by use of AI. So
Got
I can be way more resourceful when I use AI.
hmm.
So what that means is, as an entrepreneur, as a startup, I do not really need to carry all those resources
Got it.
early on.
Hmm.
And that's the scaling advantage that entrepreneurs would have. And that makes it a great time to be an entrepreneur. Because so many of those things which you are not yourself great at
Hmm.
can be assisted, and assisted is the key word. You cannot delegate to AI, but then you can get assistance from AI. It can augment your own capabilities in a much better way. And that's really is the power. And I think that's good, that's going to happen. And that would allow an entrepreneur to scale much faster, allow him or her to experiment much quicker, and engage with other partners, other companies, other consultants, freelancers, God knows, other resources, cloud resources, different applications, all of them in a much faster, much easier way,
Hmm.
without really knowing everything, without really being expert in everything. And that's the advantage.
Got it. Well, on this note, we will close the session. Thanks for joining us, Manish. Was a very interesting discussion, and I would say my best wishes for the company that you've been running for decades now. I hope you build more and more technologies and work with all the latest cutting edge stuff. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Fun talking with you, Priya.